I wish I was lying when I say this. But the very first crack in my relationship, the one that eventually shattered my entire world, started the night I accidentally walked in on something that should never have happened. It was supposed to be a normal evening. I had just come home from work early, excited to surprise my fiance, Jason. We'd been engaged for 6 months, planning a wedding that my mother had been all too eager to help with. She insisted on being involved in every detail: the venue, the flowers, even the cake tasting. At first, I thought it was sweet. I thought she just wanted me to be happy, but that night destroyed everything. I pushed open my bedroom door quietly, thinking maybe Jason was taking a nap or scrolling his phone. Instead, I froze because right there, tangled in my sheets, was Jason. And my mother, yes. My mother. His lips were on her neck, her nails dug into his back, and the disgusting sound of their moans filled the air. For a split second, I couldn't even process it. My brain refused to believe my eyes. The man I was supposed to marry and the woman who gave birth to me were hooking up in my own bed, and the worst part? The way he looked at her. It wasn't some drunken mistake or quick one-night lapse of judgment. No. He looked at her the way he used to look at me in the beginning. With hunger, with passion, with obsession. I stood there, frozen, my world crumbling, until my mother had the audacity to glance up and smirk. That smirk would haunt me for the rest of my life. I don't know how long I stood there, frozen, watching my world collapse in front of me. Seconds? Minutes? My heart was slamming against my ribs, my throat was closing up, and for a moment, I swear my vision blurred. Then the rage hit me. What the hell is this? I screamed so loud my throat burned. Jason shot up like a guilty teenager caught sneaking around, scrambling for the blanket to cover himself. My mom didn't even flinch. She just sat there, sheets pulled lazily over her chest, her expression smug like she had won. Baby, wait, I can explain, Jason stammered, his face pale, his hands trembling like a coward. Explain? I barked out a laugh that sounded more like a sob. You're in my bed with my mother, Jason. What could you possibly explain? And then, my mother. God, I'll never forget her voice. Calm. Smooth. Like she wasn't naked in bed with her daughter's fiancé. Sweetheart, don't be so dramatic. You're young. You'll understand when you're older. That line sliced through me like a knife. Don't be dramatic? I was standing there watching the two people who were supposed to love me most in this world betray me in the worst possible way. Jason tried to stand up, wrapping the blanket around his waist like it would somehow preserve his dignity. It was a mistake, okay? It just happened. Oh, it just happened? I spat, tears streaming down my face. What is this, then? Some one-time slip, or have you been screwing her behind my back for months? Silence. That silence told me everything I needed to know. I laughed bitterly, shaking my head, my whole body trembling. Unbelievable. My own mother. You couldn't find literally anyone else, Jason? No. You had to crawl into bed with the woman who raised me. The woman I trusted more than anyone. Jason's lips parted, but before he could say another word, my mom cut in. You should be thanking me. I swear, I almost lunged at her right then. Thanking you? I screamed. For what? For ruining my life? For proving you're the most disgusting excuse for a mother on this planet? Her eyes narrowed. That smugness dropped for a split second, and in its place, I saw something cold. Something calculated. You'll never satisfy him the way I can, she said, her voice sharp, venomous. You're too naive. Too boring. He deserves better. And you know what? He chose me. My knees buckled, and I had to grip the doorframe just to stay standing. My chest felt like it was caving in, and Jason? He didn't even deny it. I don't even remember leaving the room. 1 second I was standing in the doorway, my whole body shaking, my ears ringing from my mother's words, he chose me. The next, I was outside, barefoot, stumbling into the night air with tears streaming down my face. My engagement ring felt like poison on my hand. I ripped it off and hurled it across the driveway, screaming so loud the neighbor's dogs started barking. My chest was heaving, my stomach twisting so violently I thought I was going to throw up. Jason followed me out, still clutching that damn blanket around his waist like it would somehow hide the filth inside him. Baby, please. Don't do this, don't walk away. His voice cracked. He had the nerve to cry. I spun on him, my voice raw and shaking. Don't you dare call me that. You're dead to me. You hear me? Dead. The slam of the front door echoed behind us. My mother had come out too. She wasn't crying. She wasn't apologizing. She was smirking. Like she had just won some twisted competition I never even knew we were playing. You'll regret this tantrum, she said coolly, crossing her arms. Men like Jason don't come around often. You don't know how to keep a man happy. I do. I laughed, a broken, bitter laugh that ripped out of me like glass. You're sick. Both of you. You deserve each other. And with that, I ran. I didn't stop until I got to my car. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped the keys twice before jamming them into the ignition. The second I slammed the door shut, the sobs came, ugly, heaving sobs that tore through me until I couldn't breathe. How do you even process something like that? Your fiancé cheating is one thing. With your best friend? Still devastating. With your sister? Betrayal at its core. But your own mother? That's a kind of trauma that scars your soul in ways therapy doesn't have words for. I drove to my best friend's apartment and crashed there, refusing to answer any of Jason's calls or texts. By morning, my phone had over 50 messages. Some were Jason begging, some were my mother gloating, but it wasn't until 2 weeks later that the real nightmare began, because 2 weeks later, my mom called me and said the words that made me want to vomit: I'm pregnant. At first, I thought she was bluffing. Trying to get under my skin, to keep her twisted claws in me even after I'd cut her out. But she wasn't lying. Months later, she gave birth to my baby brother, and the final nail in my sanity? The DNA test. Jason wasn't just my ex-fiancé anymore. He was the father of my mother's child. My fiancé was also the father of my baby brother. When my mom told me she was pregnant, I thought I had reached the bottom of hell. But apparently, hell had a basement. At first, I tried to convince myself it wasn't real. That she was lying, that she was just trying to manipulate me, like she always did. My mom had a history of emotional games, making me feel guilty, making me feel like I wasn't good enough, making me feel like she was always the victim. So yeah, denial was my first defense, but then the baby came. I'll never forget that phone call from my aunt, her voice tight with pity. She had a boy. Healthy. 7 pounds. And just like that, I had a baby brother. A baby brother whose father was the man I almost married. Jason didn't even have the decency to disappear. He was at the hospital, holding the baby like it was the greatest moment of his life. Smiling, beaming, glowing. The same glow he used to have when he looked at me. I saw the photos on Facebook before I blocked them both. Jason grinning ear to ear, my mother sweaty and proud, the baby cradled in their arms. And the comments, God. The comments, family, friends writing things like, what a beautiful miracle. So happy for you too. You too, like this was normal. Like the man who broke my heart and the woman who raised me weren't the most toxic, vile pairing imaginable, but the worst part wasn't even the pregnancy. No. The worst part came months later, when my aunt slipped me a manila envelope. Inside was the DNA test, Jason. 99.9% probability. I remember sitting there at my kitchen table, the paper trembling in my hands, bile rising in my throat. My baby brother. My flesh and blood. And his father was the same man who put a ring on my finger. I screamed. I actually screamed so loud my neighbor banged on the wall. I tore the paper to shreds, but it didn't matter, the truth was already burned into my brain. From that day on, family gatherings were a battlefield. My mom paraded Jason around like a trophy. My relatives were split down the middle, some cut me off, saying I was being immature for not accepting their relationship. Others whispered behind closed doors, disgust dripping from their voices, but still. No one stopped it, and me? I stopped showing up. I stopped answering calls. I stopped pretending I had a family. Because honestly, I didn't anymore. I was the daughter who got replaced by her mother. The fiancé who got replaced by her own baby brother. After the DNA test, something inside me snapped. I wasn't just heartbroken anymore. I wasn't just betrayed. I was hollow. Like someone had scooped me out from the inside and left nothing but rage and grief rattling around in an empty shell. Sleep? Gone. Food? Couldn't keep it down. I would wake up in the middle of the night drenched in sweat, hearing echoes of my mom's smug voice, "He chose me." Sometimes I'd imagine Jason's hand on my skin again, and I'd jolt awake, gagging, like I was being violated all over again. I stopped trusting everyone. Every man I met? A potential liar. Every smile from a woman? A possible knife in my back. Even my own friends, the ones who tried to comfort me, started to feel like suspects. Because if my mother could betray me, who the hell couldn't? My job performance tanked. I'd sit at my desk staring at the computer screen for hours, unable to type a single coherent sentence. My boss pulled me aside one day and said, "You've been off lately. Is everything okay?" I wanted to laugh in his face. Okay? My ex-fiance just fathered my baby brother with my mother. There's no checkbox for that kind of trauma. I started drinking more than I should have. At first it was a glass of wine to numb the pain at night. Then it became 2. Then 3. Then one morning I found myself pouring vodka into my coffee before work. And that's when I knew I was spiraling. But here's the sick part: the rage kept me alive. I'd sit there, alone in my apartment, staring at old pictures. Me and Jason smiling at our engagement party. Me and my mom shopping for dresses. And I'd feel my chest tighten, my throat close, until all I could do was scream. Sometimes I'd throw the frames at the wall, watching the glass shatter, wishing it was their faces breaking instead. I wanted to hate the baby. I tried to. But every time I thought about him, guilt twisted my stomach. He didn't ask to be born into this disaster. He was innocent. The sins weren't his, they were Jason's. They were my mother's, and yet. Every time I thought of holding him, I saw Jason's face. And that was enough to send me spiraling all over again. The final straw came at Christmas. Against my better judgment, I showed up to my grandmother's house, thinking maybe I could pretend for a few hours. I walked in, and there they were. My mother, glowing like some smug queen. Jason, sitting beside her like he belonged. And the baby, my brother, my fiance's son, in her arms. Everyone cooed over the baby. Everyone ignored me, sitting in the corner, stiff and shaking. Until my mom looked over at me, smirked, and said, "Don't be jealous, honey. You'll find someone eventually." I lost it. I screamed at her. At Jason. At the whole damn family. Every ounce of rage, every sleepless night, every broken piece of me came pouring out in that moment. I called her a whore, a snake, the worst mother alive. I called Jason a parasite, a coward, a pathetic excuse for a man, and when I was done, they just sat there. Smirking. That's when I knew breaking down wasn't enough. Crying wasn't enough. Screaming wasn't enough. If I wanted my life back, if I wanted justice for what they stole from me, I was going to have to burn their little fantasy world to the ground. That Christmas was my breaking point. I walked out of my grandmother's house shaking. Tears freezing on my cheeks, my heart thundering in my chest. But underneath all that pain, there was something else. Something darker. Something sharper, clarity. If crying hadn't worked. If screaming hadn't worked. If cutting them off hadn't worked. Then fine. I'd play their game. But I'd play to win. I stopped drinking. Cold turkey. I stopped moping around in bed, stopped crying over photos, stopped replaying the betrayal like a broken record in my head. Instead, I started writing. Planning. Scheming. Jason thought he was clever, sliding right into my family like nothing happened. My mom thought she was untouchable, flaunting her stolen prize at every family gathering. But they forgot one thing: no one knows your weaknesses better than the person you betrayed. And I knew them better than anyone. Jason? He had debts. Credit card bills, a payday loan or two he'd never told my mom about. He always hated paperwork, always shoved it aside for future Jason to deal with. Well, guess who had access to all those little secrets? Me, and my mom? Oh, she loved gossip. She loved being the center of attention. But she also loved her reputation. She thrived on being the classy single mom who raised a successful daughter. Take that reputation away, and she'd crumble, so that's what I decided to do. Piece by piece. Quietly. Patiently. Step 1 was Jason's job. He worked in sales, which meant image was everything. I still had the login to his old email, the one he never bothered to change after we broke up. A few clicks, a few forwarded messages, and suddenly his boss had access to every shady little side deal he'd been running behind the company's back. He was fired within 2 weeks. Step 2 was my mother's social circle. I started small whispers to relatives, carefully placed comments to her friends. Did you know she started seeing Jason before he and I broke up? Did you know she got pregnant while he was still engaged to me? Oh, the scandal. The juicy whispers. By the time I was done, her book club disbanded, and the church ladies she loved to impress wouldn't even make eye contact with her. Step 3? Public humiliation. Jason and my mom loved posting their perfect family photos online. So I started dropping little truth bombs in the comments. Funny how he was engaged to me when this was taken winking face. Interesting how timelines overlap, huh? Some posts I didn't even comment on, I just shared them to certain relatives with a simple line, do the math, and the best part? I didn't even have to lie. The truth was damning enough. By the time spring rolled around, Jason was unemployed, my mother's social circle was scorched earth, and the whispers about them weren't whispers anymore, they were roars. And me? For the first time in months, I felt alive again. Not healed. Not whole. But alive, because if they wanted to play dirty, they had no idea who they were up against. Watching Jason lose his job and my mom's reputation crumble should have been enough. But it wasn't. Not for me. Every time I closed my eyes, I still saw them in my bed, tangled together, mocking me with their betrayal. Every time I scrolled past their smug little photos with the baby, I felt the acid rise in my throat. No. They didn't deserve peace. They didn't deserve stability. They didn't deserve each other, so I took it further. Jason, bless his stupid heart, never did learn to manage money. With him unemployed, their bills started piling up fast. My mother had drained most of her savings on the wedding plans I cancelled, and now she was supporting not just herself but Jason and a newborn. I knew it was only a matter of time before things started cracking, but I didn't want to wait. Remember those debts of his? I made sure the collection agencies had his current address, my mother's house. Nothing says romance like process servers showing up at your door while your new baby is crying in the background. And then came the credit cards. Oh, the glorious credit cards. I knew all his old passwords, he reused them for everything. A little digging, a little recon, and suddenly Jason's accounts were maxed to the hilt. Designer handbags shipped to random addresses. Gaming consoles bought in bulk. Hotel bookings in other states. Fraud alerts. Frozen accounts. Jason swore he was hacked. My mother didn't believe him. The fights began, I know, because I heard them. You see, step 2 of my escalation plan was information. I had an old baby monitor, one of those Wi-Fi ones. I accidentally left it in a box of baby supplies I sent over as a peace offering. They plugged it in. And just like that, I had a front row seat to their screaming matches, Jason yelling about money. My mom accusing him of cheating on her now. Him storming out at all hours. Her crying, begging him not to leave. It was poetic justice, but the piece de resistance? That was step 3. Social annihilation. I created a little folder. Screenshots of texts Jason had sent me while we were still engaged, texts where he told me he loved me, where he swore he'd never betray me, where he promised me forever. Screenshots of wedding plans, honeymoon bookings, receipts with his name on them. And then I paired those with timestamps of when he started sleeping with my mom. Then, like a well-placed grenade, I dropped that folder anonymously into every inbox that mattered, my extended family, her friends, his old coworkers, the church board. Boom, their perfect little facade shattered overnight. Invitations stopped coming. Friends ghosted. My grandmother called me in tears, begging me to stop the war, but I wasn't at war. I was just balancing the scales, and the best part? Jason started slipping. Drinking more. Showing up at bars. Flirting with other women. My mother knew. I knew she knew, because I heard it through that baby monitor. The irony was almost too sweet. She stole him from me, and now she couldn't even keep him. One night, through the crackle of that monitor, I heard her scream the words I'd been waiting for, "You're just like your father." Jason laughed. A cold, cruel laugh. At least he didn't sleep with his daughter's fiance. Silence. Then sobs. That night, I slept better than I had in months. By the time summer rolled around, their picture-perfect family had completely rotted from the inside out. And I had a front row seat. The fights became constant. Jason was restless, bitter, snapping at my mom for everything: money, the baby, the bills, even the food she cooked. She accused him of being ungrateful. He accused her of ruining his life. Through that baby monitor, I watched their love story die in real time. One night, after another screaming match, Jason stormed out and didn't come back until morning. His shirt was wrinkled, his hair messy, and my mom, oh, she knew. I could hear the tremble in her voice when she asked him, "Where were you?" He didn't even bother lying. Out. With someone who isn't a nagging, bitter old woman. That was the dagger. And he twisted it deeper. "Do you know what I see when I look at you?" Jason sneered. "A desperate, washed-up woman clinging to whatever scraps of attention she can get. You weren't my choice. You were just convenient. Convenient." The same man who had looked me in the eyes and promised me forever, who stood in my bedroom betraying me with my own mother, was now spitting on her the way he spat on me. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost, because here's the thing, my mom had built her identity around being desirable. Around being the woman who could steal a man, even if it was her daughter's fiance. And now? Jason was treating her like garbage. Worse than garbage, she crumbled. I heard it in her sobs, in her begging, in the way she clung to him even as he shoved her off. And every tear she shed was like water to the fire in my chest. But I wasn't done yet. See, I had kept one last card in my pocket. The nuclear option. And when I played it, there would be no recovery. I sent my mom an anonymous letter. Inside was a single photo: Jason, drunk, with his arm around a girl half his age at a bar downtown. Lipstick smudged on his collar. The meltdown that followed? Legendary. My mom showed up at his buddy's apartment, baby in one arm, rage in the other. She threw his clothes out onto the street. She screamed at him in front of neighbors, in front of strangers, in front of anyone who would listen. She called him a cheater, a liar, a worthless man who destroyed her family. And Jason? He laughed. He actually laughed in her face. "You think I ruined your family?" He sneered. "You did that all by yourself when you couldn't keep your legs closed." Those words spread fast. Faster than wildfire. Faster than my whispers ever could. Now it wasn't just me pointing out the truth, it was Jason himself, broadcasting her shame to the whole damn world. Within weeks, Jason was gone. Packed up, disappeared, left her with nothing but bills, a baby, and the ashes of the happily ever after she stole from me. And me? I watched it all crumble with a smile, because for once, my mother finally felt what it was like to be me, betrayed, humiliated, abandoned. And Jason? He was exactly what I always knew he was. A coward who'd run when things got hard. Poetic justice. When Jason finally packed up and disappeared, it was like someone had cut the last rotten thread holding their mess together. My mother was left standing in the ruins, broke, bitter, and alone with a baby she had to raise without a partner. And me? For the first time in over a year, I could breathe. Don't get me wrong, the scars didn't disappear overnight. I still had nights where I jolted awake in a cold sweat, where the betrayal replayed in my head like a nightmare on a loop. But those nights were fewer now. And when the memories came, they didn't shatter me the way they used to, because I knew the truth: they hadn't won. Jason lost everything. My mother lost everything. And I walked away stronger. I cut off contact completely. Changed my number. Blocked them on every platform. I told my grandmother, the only one in the family who still cared about me, that I was done pretending I had a mother. That woman gave birth to me, yes. But a real mother doesn't compete with her daughter. A real mother doesn't sabotage her happiness. A real mother doesn't betray her in the most unforgivable way possible. From that day on, I stopped calling her mom. She was just Marianne. A stranger who happened to share my DNA. And Jason? He faded into nothing. Word got around that he bounced from job to job, couch to couch. Woman to woman. A drifter. A loser. A nobody. Exactly what he deserved to be, but me? I started building again. I went to therapy. I faced the ugly parts of myself, the rage, the grief, the shame. I learned that what they did to me said nothing about my worth. That I wasn't unlovable. That I wasn't replaceable. That I wasn't broken beyond repair. I started saying yes to new experiences. I traveled. I picked up hobbies I'd abandoned. I surrounded myself with friends who reminded me daily that I was enough, and little by little, I felt myself coming back. Not the same girl who once dreamed of marrying Jason. No, she was gone forever. But in her place, a woman who had walked through fire and survived, a woman who knew exactly how much she was worth, a woman who would never, ever let anyone treat her as disposable again, and maybe that's the real revenge. Not the rumors. Not the sabotage. Not even the sweet satisfaction of watching their lives collapse. No, the real revenge is thriving in spite of them, because at the end of the day, Jason and Marianne will always be defined by betrayal. By shame. By destruction, but me? I'll be defined by survival. By strength. By rising from the ashes of the life they tried to burn down and building something unshakable in its place. You know what people always ask me? How do you move on from something like that? How do you survive knowing your fiancé and your own mother betrayed you in the worst way imaginable? And the answer is simple: you don't move on. You don't just erase it, pretend it never happened, slap on a smile, and act like everything's fine. No. That kind of betrayal? It brands you. It scars you so deep that you'll carry the mark forever. But here's the thing about scars: they're proof that you survived. And I did survive. Jason? He's nothing. Just a cautionary tale. The kind of man who drifts through life taking pieces of people, leaving destruction behind, never building anything real. He'll spend the rest of his life chasing validation he'll never find. And my mother? Marianne? She lost me. And honestly, that's the cruelest punishment of all. Because deep down, I know she thrived on my love, my trust, my admiration. And now? She'll never have it again. She'll look at that baby me brother, her son, and she'll see Jason's face in him. She'll remember the way he left her, the way he humiliated her, the way he laughed in her face. And she'll know that she destroyed her own family, her own daughter, for a man who didn't even stick around. That's her legacy. That's her cross to bear. And me? My legacy is this: I refuse to be broken. Yes, they tried to shatter me. Yes, they dragged me into a nightmare I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. Yes, they took everything I thought I knew about love, family, loyalty, and burned it to ashes, but I rose from those ashes. Stronger. Smarter. Harder to break. And if anyone out there has ever felt that kind of betrayal, let me tell you this: you are not weak for hurting. You are not weak for screaming, crying, breaking down. That's what makes you human. What makes you powerful is what you do next. You don't let them define you. You don't let their betrayal be the last chapter of your story. You take that pain, and you build yourself into someone they could never touch again. Because at the end of the day, they'll always be haunted by what they did. They'll always be defined by their ugliness, their selfishness, their betrayal, but you? You'll be defined by survival. By strength. By the fact that you outlived the fire they set for you. So yeah. My fiancé cheated on me with my mother. He fathered my baby brother. My life turned into a twisted soap opera no one would believe if it wasn't mine, but guess what? I'm still here, and I'm still standing, and that's something they'll never take from me.